If you've got an old fishing rod hanging up in the garage rafters, or leaning in the back corner of a closet, or still tucked in a canvas sack behind the paint cans, do me a favor and don't sell it at the yard sale for $5 just yet. Because some of those dusty old sticks are worth more than the boat you'd fish them from. I've been buying at barn sales and estate auctions for the better part of 40 years, and I have pulled rods out of chicken coops and rafters that brought thousands of dollars once the right eyes landed on them. Now here's the honest truth I'll tell you right up front, because I'm not here to sell you a dream. Most old fishing rods are worth almost nothing, $20, $30 on a good day. But a small handful, made by certain hands, stamped with certain names, are the ones collectors chase like bird dogs. Today I'm going to walk you down from number 10 to number 1, and I'll tell you the exact marks to look for. And I'll say this now so you stay with me. There is one name at the very top of this list that has sold for the price of a good used pickup truck, and most folks who own one have no idea what they're holding. We'll get there. Hang on. Number 10. Let's start with the Heddon split bamboo fly rods. Now, Heddon is a name most folks know from fishing lures, but from the 1920s into the 50s, they built cane fly rods too, and some were mighty fine. Here's your tell. Look at the shaft just above the cork grip for the stamped model name. You're after ones marked with names like the Black Beauty or a model number in the higher lines. Most Heddon cane rods run maybe $100 to $250, but a clean, original, higher-grade Heddon with its bag and tube can bring $400 to $600, and the truly top models more. The junk ones? Cracked, refinished, missing tips, those are wall decorations. Condition is everything here, and I'll keep saying that. Number 9. The Granger rods, made in Denver, Colorado. These came out of the Goodwin Granger Company and later Wright and McGill, and fly fishermen out west still swear by them. Look for the model name written right on the shaft: Victory, Special, Aristocrat, Champion, and the top one, the Deluxe. A plain Granger Victory in rough shape might be $150. But a Granger Deluxe, all original, with those beautiful wraps and the pop-off ferrule caps intact, that's a $500 to $1,000 rod, sometimes more. And here's a little something most people miss. The value hides in the hardware. Original ferrule caps and reel seat, unmolested, is what separates a real one from a beat-up one. Number 8. Now we step up. The Orvis impregnated bamboo rods, out of Manchester, Vermont. In the 1940s, a fellow named Wes Jordan developed a way to soak the cane in bakelite resin so the rod shrugged off water and never needed varnishing. Look for the Battenkill name and the Orvis stamp, and often a serial number. A common Battenkill runs $300 to $700, but the shorter, lighter models, the little 7.5-footers and the rare tapers, those climb past $1,000, and a mint one with paperwork more still. Why do collectors love them? Because they were built to fish, and most of them still can. That matters. We'll come back to why in a minute. Number 7. F. E. Thomas, out of Bangor, Maine. Fred Thomas learned his trade in the old Leonard shop. Remember that name, Leonard, it's coming, and struck out on his own, building some of the prettiest rods in New England. Look for the Thomas stamp on the shaft and models like the Special and the Dorigo. A Thomas in fishing condition runs $500 to $1,500. A rare short one in original finish with tight ferrules and both tips, $2,000 and up. Here's the strange part with Maine rods. The little ones are worth more than the big ones. A short, light rod for small streams is scarce, and scarcity is what moves the money. Number 6. Before we go higher, let me stop you at the shop counter for a second, because you need to know the number one thing that kills a rod's value: refinishing. I have watched grown men strip the old varnish off a $2,000 rod to make it look pretty and turn it into a $400 rod in an afternoon. Original finish, original wraps, original stampings. Collectors want it honest, not shiny. So before you touch a thing with sandpaper or steel wool, you stop. Just stop. Now, back to the countdown. Number 6, proper. The E.C. Powell rods out of Marysville, California. Powell figured out a hollow-built bamboo construction, actually planing out the inside of the cane to make the rod lighter and faster. Look for the Powell name and the semi-hollow build. A knowledgeable buyer can spot it. A standard Powell runs $600 to $1,500, but an early hollow-built Powell in fine shape can bring $2,000 to $3,000 to a West Coast collector who knows what that hollow construction meant. It was ahead of its time, and folks pay for firsts. Number 5. H. L. Leonard. This is the granddaddy of the American bamboo rod trade, Hiram Leonard, and the shop that trained half the great builders in this country. Look for the Leonard stamp and the model, and the finest ones have a distinctive touch on the hardware. A middling Leonard runs $800 to $2,000, but the pre-fire rods, the early ones, and certain rare tapers can bring $5,000 and well beyond. Here's a tell that separates the wheat from the chaff. Look at the ferrules. Leonard used beautiful nickel-silver waterproof ferrules, and a Leonard with its original ferrules, unbuggered, is worth real money. One with a cheap replacement ferrule loses half its value in a heartbeat. Number 4. Paul H. Young, out of Michigan. Now, Young was a character and a genius, and his rods have a cult following like few others. You're looking for the Paul Young stamp and legendary model names: the Midge, the Perfectionist, the Para 15, the Driggs. A Paul Young in honest shape runs $1,500 to $4,000. But a mint Perfectionist or a Midge, those little dry fly wands, with the bag and tube and no repairs, those have crossed $5,000, and the rarest examples higher. Why so much for a short little rod? Because fishermen who've cast one say there's nothing else like it, and demand like that doesn't cool off. Before I give you the top 3, ask yourself something. Have you actually gone out and looked in the rafters yet? Because I promise you, the rod I'm about to describe at number 1 has been sitting in ordinary garages for 50 years, mistaken for junk. Go look tonight. Now let's keep climbing. Number 3. E. W. Edwards and the Edwards family rods. And here I'll widen it a touch to include the quiet giants, the makers whose names don't ring a bell to the average person, but ring like a church bell to a collector. Look for the Edwards stamp and the quad rods, the four-sided ones, which are unusual and prized. A good Edwards quad can bring $2,000 to $4,000. And this is the tier where I'll tell you plainly, if you find a rod with a name you don't recognize, don't assume it's worthless. The unknown name might be the rare one. Photograph the stamp and ask someone who knows before you let it go. Number 2. E. F. Payne and the son, Jim Payne. If Leonard is the granddaddy, Payne is the gold standard, the rod that other builders measured themselves against. Look for the Payne stamp on the shaft and that clean, understated elegance. Dark wraps, no showing off. A Payne rod in fishing condition starts around $2,000 and climbs fast. A fine Jim Payne, all original with bag and tube, regularly brings $5,000 to $10,000, and the scarce models and lengths reach higher still. Here's the tell that matters most with a Payne: originality, top to bottom. Payne guarded quality so tightly that collectors will pay a fortune for one untouched and turn up their nose at one that's been fussed with. Remember what I said about refinishing? Nowhere does it cost you more than here. And now, number 1, the name I've been holding back this whole time: Everett Garrison. Now here's what makes Garrison the grail. The man was an engineer, and he built rods by mathematics, calculating the stresses along every inch of the cane. He worked slow, he made very few, and he signed his work. You're looking for the Garrison signature and a serial number, often written in ink right on the shaft above the grip, sometimes with the model number. A genuine Everett Garrison rod, all original, has sold at auction from around $10,000 up into the 20s and beyond, depending on the model and condition. That is a real, documented collector market, not hype, not a maybe. This is the rod some folks have paid the price of a good used truck for. And it looks, to the untrained eye, like a plain old bamboo fly rod hanging in the rafters. So now you know why I told you to go look. Because a Garrison, a Payne, a Paul Young, they don't announce themselves. They're slim, quiet, honest-looking sticks that a person could mistake for any old cane pole. The value is in the signature, the stamp, the serial number, and the originality, and in whether some well-meaning soul kept his sandpaper in his pocket. Let me leave you with the plain talk version because I don't want anybody getting the wrong idea. Most old rods in most garages are worth a little and no more. Fiberglass rods, the Montague and Horrocks Ibbotson production rods, the no-name cane poles, those are $20 to $50 items and always will be. But the handful I named today, Heddon, Granger, Orvis, Thomas, Powell, Leonard, Edwards, Paul Young, Payne, and Garrison at the top, those are the ones you check the stamp on before you ever let them leave the family. Count the sides of the cane, find the writing above the grip, check that the ferrules and wraps are original, and for the love of Pete, don't strip the finish. Now here's what I'd ask of you. Go out to that garage this week and actually pull those rods down, and read the shaft right above the cork with a good light. If you find one of these names, don't rush it. A real one only sells once, so learn what you've got first. If this walk down the countdown was worth your time, stick around the shop with me. I've got a whole barn's worth of these stories, and there's always another dusty treasure waiting to be found. Come on back and sit a spell next time. I'll keep the light on for you.